Good afternoon. About 4 years ago, I began working at the People's Church, which is in North York in Toronto. And when I accepted that role, I began to get to know who was in the community, who was doing wonderful things. I was getting to know the makeup of our church. Our church has about 5,000 members, and many of them were not born in Canada. It's not where they were born. At some point, they were newcomers. So our church has about over 70 languages represented. And because we have partners all over the world, very often when people arrive in Canada, I started to notice people would come from the airport to our church because they'd been told by someone, when you get to Toronto, go to the People's Church, they'll be able to help you. So it was a no-brainer for me to find out who was doing good settlement work that we could learn from and work alongside of. And so I found out about the Local Immigration Partnership, and I'd had past experience working downtown with them. So when I got to the North, I contacted the North Local Immigration Partnership, and I met a beautiful woman named Elmira, and I said, I would love to find out about what you folks are doing. And she looked at me and she said, I am so excited. We've been trying to get faith groups to the table for so long, and we haven't had any success, and I'm so thankful that you've come. And I mean, it was such a warm welcome. And why would it not be? I just want us to look at some facts. I'm just going to skip over this one and come back to it in a minute. Whoa, okay. This one?
Green one. Green one.
There we go.
Perfect, thanks.
So, generally speaking, and I know this isn't ideal, and I know that it may not touch on every faith group that you are familiar with, but generally speaking, faith groups share the essential values of compassion, caring, and encourage the practice of volunteerism. Who in this room is looking for volunteers? Nobody. Come on. We're always looking for volunteers. Faith groups encourage their people, generally speaking, to volunteer. It's one of the essentials of a faith group, is that they're volunteering. Huge volunteer resource. Generally speaking, faith groups are diverse, intergenerational communities. Exactly the kind of community that we're hoping to integrate our people into. Now, there's lots of different groups. There are bowling leagues, and there are chess clubs, and that are pretty specific in their focus, but generally speaking, faith groups cover broad socioeconomic boundaries, intergenerational boundaries, and so you're getting a really diverse and wonderful group of people. Faith groups are communal and generous with their resources. Again, for people who participate actively in their faith group, they're encouraged to share their resources. And I mean by this, not just money, but time, facilities. So again, when we started to engage with the Local Immigration Partnership, we began to have planning meetings. Who here found a parking space when they tried to come to this? Did you spend a long time looking for a parking space? Yeah. At our church, we've got tons and tons of parking. A lot of churches have parking that's used once a week, friends, and it's free parking beside nice meeting spaces. And so a lot of the Toronto North Local Immigration Partnership planning meetings, people can drive in. Our church serves coffee. They don't even have to go to Starbucks. They drive in, free parking, and they've got a meeting room. And I'm not just describing our reality. So many faith groups have facilities that have a lot of the things that your events, activities, and meetings are looking for. So why would we not access this great resource, especially in view of the fact, and we'll go back to the first slide, and I think you'll agree with this, that faith is a key component in the self-identity of many newcomers. And yet, so many of our activities, so many of our gatherings never acknowledge this. And friends, when there's silence, people make up their own narratives. A lot of our newcomers are coming from situations where their faith was actually part of the thing that caused them pain, part of the thing that may have been problematic. And yet they're coming to this new home looking for a new narrative, a place where they can freely live out whatever faith means to them. And they're often met by this silence, this lack of talking about it. And so some of the narratives that are created are not accurate. We have a beautiful farmers market at our church. And there was a lovely Muslim lady who was coming regularly to the farmers market. And then one time she said to me, she was carrying a little one, and I said, why don't you take your little one in there? There's a nice play area and you can sit down, because it was sort of rainy out. And she looked at me and she said, am I allowed to come into your church? And I said, of course you're allowed to come into our church. But because nobody had said that, people make up, they fill in the narrative. So we need to be showing that we are welcoming, that we are inclusive, that we are collaborative in this. So we have a rich resource. We have faith being a component of the self-identity of many of our newcomers. So why are faith groups and secular groups not readily working together to welcome newcomers? Why are local immigration partnerships a bit hesitant to really plug into the resources that faith groups offer? For this reason. Faith groups are by nature exclusive in their tenets, in what they believe. Now, in other situations, this is a negative, and it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for some groups to work together. But I don't believe that is the case in our country. I believe in a liberal democracy, this doesn't have to be a barrier to collaboration. So I'll use the P word, the word that everybody is worried about when they're engaging with faith groups. This propensity to proselytize as we see it. And proselytize is often bandied around, or actually just sort of sits at the back of the conversation that nobody talks about, which is obviously why we can't include a faith group. But if we actually understood what that meant and what that should look like, again, in a liberal democracy, to proselytize is to induce or recruit someone to join one's faith or party. Now, nobody likes to be induced. Nobody likes to be necessarily recruited when those things mean something negative. But to invite and include is not the same as to proselytize, folks. And we have to be giving that message clearly to our newcomers. Nobody wants to be coerced and manipulated, but everyone wants to be invited and included, even if they don't want to come. It's really nice to be invited and to have the freedom to say, actually, no, that's not for me. But to be not invited gives a message of exclusion again. And that's not the message that local immigration partnerships, certainly not our church, and many faith groups are wanting to give. They want to know that everyone's welcome to my church. I give you an invitation. Am I trying to manipulate or coerce? Absolutely not. I'm telling you that you are welcome. And I love it when people of other faith groups say to me, you're welcome, Sandra. I would love to have you visit. That's a beautiful thing, and it's sort of the raison d'etre of much of what we do. So in order to productively include richly resourced communities, well-suited to welcome newcomers, we have to understand and adjust our understanding of collaboration. In working with faith groups, we have to establish and agree upon healthy understandings of invitation and inclusion, as well as clear boundaries for respectful engagement between those who believe differently. So one of the beautiful things that I've been part of with the Toronto North Local Immigration is something called Faith and Settlement, where we have conversations about our faith and how we can work together, how we can get a richer and deeper understanding of what other people include. But as a faith group, not everything we do needs to be about our faith agenda. We also have a broader agenda of contributing to the community. And so some of the events and activities that we organize and work together with LIP on involve employment, involve settlement, involve things that don't include our specifically religious agenda. But a lot of faith groups are willing to participate and eager to participate in things. One of the things that we regularly have had with great success at our facility is employment fairs, where employers come and folks come in. Health fairs, we have them regularly with Toronto LIP. So there are these kind of activities. Boundaries are established where this isn't something that is mainly about faith.
Sandra, can I just 1 minute?
Okay, perfect. One of the best examples of setting really good boundaries with faith groups are the affirmations for faith leaders put out by the UNHCR. Is anybody familiar with that? It's a brilliant document. I give it to as many people as I can. I've got a few copies here now. It's readily sourced online if you want to get it, or I can send it out to you by email. So in collaborating, we'll just go ahead, to work jointly with others, it means two things in the dictionary. I don't know if you were aware of this. To collaborate can mean to work together or to betray, to sort of give away what's important to you, to collaborate with the enemy. We have to work hard to help people understand that a faith group does not have to betray what it believes in to work alongside of other faith groups. In fact, for most faith groups, it is a betrayal of what we believe in to not be willing to work together. Finally, compromise does not have to be synonymous with betrayal when there's mutual respect for essential differences. Respectful and transparent dialogue is essential to clear the issues caused by misunderstandings and misinformation and create space for mutual boundary establishment that will make collaborative work with faith groups essential. Not only to accomplish what is precious to us, but even more importantly, I would say, most importantly, we'll skip over that. Oh, sorry. Sometimes how we do something is even more important than what we're doing. And for groups to be working together, faith groups to be working together, we are modeling and exempling to people that this is what we do in our society. We live together, respectfully collaborating with people who believe something different than us. And this is not only okay, but it is good. And that is what I've really experienced with the Toronto North local immigration. The initiatives that we've had, I think, are really strong testimony that this is what we hold to be important and true in our society. Thank you.
Thank you.